What's that about then? Hey, no!
British patriots take to the street in response to Islamic threats. In the wake of a recent stabbing incident in Southport, the United Kingdom is facing significant social and political unrest.
In front of me. People on the streets, we've done nothing wrong.
A group of British patriots has taken to the streets protesting against what they perceive as an Islamist threat within the nation. These protests have led to clashes with law enforcement as the patriots accuse the Muslim community of being behind the attack, despite this claim being widely disputed.
Now, a UK government minister has said the impact of the riots which hit parts of the UK over the past 2 weeks will be felt for years to come. Thousands of anti-racism protesters rallied in towns and cities across the UK on Saturday, with people taking to the streets in cities including Belfast, Birmingham, Cardiff and Glasgow. It follows the disorder in areas of England and Northern Ireland fuelled by online disinformation following the Southport attack in which 3 young girls were killed. More than 775 people have been arrested. Well, the far right used social media to organise some of those protests. With me is Lizzie Dearden, who is a security and home affairs journalist. And I know, Lizzie, you looked on social media at how these far right groups organise themselves. Just take us through how they use social media.
So what we saw was a massive mobilisation following the Southport attack that took in all different parts of the far right, both in the UK and internationally. There was a mobilisation across different social media platforms, which includes X, formerly Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat, and also more encrypted and secure platforms like Telegram. And what they were seeking to do was really use the grief and anger and confusion that so many people felt after the murders in Southport to turn that into something that would be useful to them and the way they see the world, and to get their message out to people. And so what we've seen is the use of protests, the use of misinformation and fake news, all by these different groups trying to get their points across about how they say that non-white people are dangerous, how they say that Muslims are dangerous, to a much wider pool of people.
And say, for example, on Telegram, how many people would be involved in a group that was talking about protests?
Well, Telegram works like other social media channels, for instance, like WhatsApp, in that you can join a one-to-one chat or you can join very large groups.
Prime Minister Keir Starmer has responded firmly to the situation, emphasising that the UK is not a lawless zone. He has issued a warning against the spread of misinformation, particularly on social media, and stressed that anyone involved in creating or spreading false narratives will face legal consequences.
And what we saw after Southport is specific groups set up with that name in the title so that people could find them. Some of them got up to 15,000, 20,000 people in them. But what we saw very quickly is that when the discussion in those groups turned violent, when people started to discuss targeting asylum seekers and mosques, Telegram did take action and take those groups down. So from those very large peaks, they then split into much smaller groups, some of which only had a dozen people in each of them.
Do we have any idea who's behind them?
Yes, it's a range of people. Some people have been trying to keep their identities secret. Some people are actually very high-profile activists who have been kind of large voices on the scene for many years. And we're seeing a kind of shift in tactics now because the police in the UK have started to very openly say that they are going to seek to go after people who have incited some of this disorder. Some of these figures are now climbing down and they've stopped calling for kind of disorder and protests, but some people are doubling down and they're still trying to get people onto the streets, and it remains to be seen if that will continue working.
Yes, because this is an interesting tactic from the government to push forward with those prosecutions. I know you've been in a number of the courts seeing the people being processed. Did you, while you were watching all of that, get any idea of their motivation, the people that are up before the judges?
It's actually a very confusing picture, and part of that is a product of British law. A lot of the offences that people are being prosecuted for example, violent disorder and assault, they don't actually need prosecutors to prove motivation. But in court, a lot of people are saying, you know, I'm not racist, I wasn't out there to attack Muslims, I was just caught up in the energy of the moment. And at the moment we're going through, I guess you could say, the slightly more simple cases, people who were caught on the scene throwing a rock, but it's going to get more complicated and more...
This crackdown on misinformation has sparked controversy, with critics arguing that it infringes on free speech, while the government insists it's necessary to maintain public order.
More involved in that kind of motivation picture as we start moving into seeing people prosecuted for online offences where they've been encouraging people to come out and organising events. So at the moment, some people are denying any motivation at all, really. They're just saying they were simply there, but that may change as more cases come through the courts.
Yes, and I suppose when it is someone who's done something that there is video evidence of them carrying something out, that is easier to prosecute and for them to plead guilty rather than something online.
Yes, exactly, and that's what we're seeing in the kind of initial wave of prosecutions. Some people are being jailed within 2, 3, 4, 5 days of, as you say, being caught physically at the scene with footage, and they plead guilty and it's over very quickly. But we will start moving into a more complex space where people will start denying offences, or if more serious crimes are charged, then we might start going to full trial.
Lizzie, fascinating stuff. Thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it. And you can get more, of course, on all of this on the BBC News website and app.
Although the streets have seen a relative calm in recent days, underlying tensions persist. The British Patriots vow to continue their fight, accusing the government of giving in to Islamist demands, while the government remains committed to upholding the rule of law and protecting the safety of all citizens.
Should protesters be banned from covering their faces? That's one thing the government is considering following the UK riots. More than 30 people involved have already been convicted, and there's been more than 400 arrests. But identifying some offenders has been made harder by face coverings. Powers already exist for police forces to temporarily ban face coverings in local areas where disorder is expected. But the Home Office wants a permanent nationwide ban on them at protests. The law would be developed to ensure innocent people wearing religious dress would not be penalised. People wearing face coverings for health reasons would also be protected. The Tories wanted to jail or fine people up to £1,000 if they refused to remove face coverings. But the plans were scrapped when Rishi Sunak called an election. Labour said innocent people do not need to conceal their identity. But would the ban impact on freedom of speech? Critics say the fear of being identified would deter some peaceful protesters from attending demonstrations.
As the UK navigates this complex period, the outcome of this ideological clash will have significant implications for the nation's future. The battle for the UK's identity is ongoing, and the future remains uncertain.
As much pressure as we can.
Investigating the anarchy. There have been nearly 600 arrests now.
Hello, what's your name, please?
The alleged offences include violent disorder and racially aggravated criminal damage. And it's not just those who were there physically. This armchair rioter, Jordan Parler, has become the first person jailed for social media posts.
You were encouraging others to attack a hotel which you knew was occupied by refugees and asylum seekers. The overall effect of your post was to incite violence.
Parler's initial Facebook post received 6 likes, but it was then sent to 1,500 friends. He wrote, "Every man and his dog should smash the F out of the Britannia Hotel." His mum told the court the 28-year-old was caught up and swept away by emotions circulating around the country.
The sentence that I pass has been reduced by 1/3 to reflect your guilty plea. The sentence is one of 20 months imprisonment.
Keir Starmer said today laws governing social media will be reviewed. There's been a debate about the Online Safety Act, which gives the regulator Ofcom the power to fine social media platforms that fail to tackle disinformation. Police chiefs have raised concerns at the length of time it takes technology companies to remove problematic posts.
I do agree that we're going to have to look more broadly at social media after this disorder, but the focus at the moment has to be on dealing with the disorder and making sure that our communities are safe and secure.
Around 150 people have now been charged, including not just those who rioted, but those who took them on. In Leeds, 2 Asian men who went on an anti-racism demo and then punched far-right protesters in the city centre have been jailed. 21-year-old Samir Ali was given 20 months for a fray. 31-year-old Adnan Ghafoor 18 months for the same offence, with further time for breaching a previous suspended sentence.
You, Ghafoor, say that you were racially abused, and I accept that that might be so. There was then an outbreak of violence in a public street in the middle of Leeds, and was started by a group with which you were associated.
After the violence of the last week, 6,000 riot officers will be deployed this weekend as police remain on high alert. The government believes their constant public messages about swift...
Let us know your thoughts in the comments section, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications to stay updated. Take care and stay safe.